What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Do It With War Crimes here, and we're back at it again in the shop doing some cool work on a truck. This isn't my truck, this is a buddy of mine's truck. But he hit me up, he goes, hey man, you think you could build me a flatbed for my dually? And me being the dumbass that I am, I was like, yeah, absolutely. You give me enough time and money and material, I can figure anything out, right? So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna build us a flatbed for this truck. I've never built one before. It's probably gonna be the biggest thing that I've ever fabricated. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it goes down. Hopefully it goes down well. So before we kick this off, we need two things. A, we need to get the old bed off, and B, we need to pick up the metal. So I reached out to my good buddies over at Metal Supermarkets of Atlanta, and I said, hey, listen, I got this project coming up. They were like, we know exactly what you need. They hooked us up. They gave us a great deal on the metal, so we can make a really kick-ass bed. They have great prices. They'll deliver. These are the guys that I get all my metal from for all my orders and stuff like that in the shop. Really appreciate them for being a part of the build, and there's a link for everything in the description for them. And we're gonna head out that way in just a second.
But I want to do something that I've been wanting to do since I got the dually back and registered. You see, everyone always uses their 360 cameras and their ghost mounts for cars. But why not trucks?
Yeah, dude. That ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that.
Now, for me, metal is my favorite material to work with, and the guys over at Metal Supermarkets are good people, so it's always a fun stop for me. They have any kind of metal in any shape or form that you'd need. I usually go grab some scraps from their overflow, like when I go pick up metal for orders or whatever project I'm working on.
All right, how are we gonna do this? All right, what do I need to do? What's the best way to handle this? That's perfect, dude. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Be good, dude.
You too.
Hell yeah. Now we need to get on.
So first things first, the frame is a little rusty. It's not bad. It's nothing on the frame itself is ruined or anything like that. However, he does have this gooseneck here, which is, to be honest with you, is completely toast. It is not reusable. So I sent him a message. I was like, hey dude, I sent him some photos of it. I was like one good tug and this thing's coming right off. And I was like, do you use it? He's like, no man, take it off. I don't use that shit. And I was like, cool, perfect, because you're not gonna need to. So we're just gonna go ahead and pull it off. It looks like it's got some U-bolts that kind of connect it. So like around the frame, it wraps around the frame, and some of it's bolted directly to the frame. I'm hoping it can just come right off. Worst case scenario, we'll cut it off. Let's just start out by doing that. And just to make my life a little easier, I'm gonna hit a lot of these major nuts, giggity, with some P-Blaster. P-Blaster is good shit. Everyone who knows PB Blaster is the shit. Man, I sure hope this thing doesn't just kick my ass. All right, it's had some time to soak. We'll see if that makes a difference. This might sound like goofy shit, but I am wearing eye protection. You never know when some rust is gonna come off and hit you in the face. Ooh, I'll just collect all them nuts here. That's gonna be a bitch. Man, it'd be great if these fucking wheels weren't here, you know what I'm saying? Oh my gosh. All right, well, we might break some shit. There we go. I'm gonna need an adjustable wrench that I can beat the dog shit out of. This is gonna be a problem. So there's a really big bolt and nut right here I'm going to try to cheater tube it without hopefully breaking my... Whew, this thing's kicking my ass, brother. Whew. I can't believe how much that one bolt was. Wow, that fucking was stupid, wasn't it? Put it over here now. I know better than that. Fuck you, dude. That about broke my wrist. All right, I got an impact socket on here. Are you happy, liberals? Huh? Well, that head came off about how I expected it to. Huh, so that is threaded. That's weird, right? No, that's not, that wasn't threaded. The other side's just fucked. So this should come off now. Let's try to get this other bolt out of here while we're at it. Right, so this thing should come off now. Yeah, it does. Just heavy as shit. Oh my gosh, how is this thing this heavy? Oh my God. It weighs a fucking ton. Ugh, it's all solid steel. Solid square steel. Ugh. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe rust isn't lighter than carbon fiber. Huh, I have an idea. And it's a good one. Best idea I've had all day, and it's been a long day. I'll show you my thought process on how I'm gonna build this. We'll go from here. So, my idea for building the bed is as such. To run two, ow, owie, metal splinter, super fun. Okay, and then we're just gonna kinda lay, this is heavy, by the way, very heavy square tubing. 3/16 thick, that's heavy duty shit, brother. That's heavy duty square. Now it's not 100% flush. There's a bunch of shit on the frame, we'll get there. But the idea is I'm gonna run two of these square stock tubes right along the frame, and then I'm gonna run these C-channel long ways. These are 8-foot cuts of C-channel. Also incredibly heavy duty, incredibly thick. We're gonna run 5 of these C-channels from back here to front. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 8-foot wide C-channels. So we'll run them from here all the way to back there. And these are 10-foot rungs of the 2x3 square stock, square tubing rather. I'll probably cut these somewhere around here. You know, we'll cut off 2 feet of these here because this is gonna be like an 8x8 bed. So 8 feet wide, 8 foot long, and then we've got your tow bar here, your tow hitch back here. So we got a lot of work. We got a lot of work to do. I think the design is gonna be, I think the bed's gonna be pretty heavy duty. And what I'll do is when we come to measuring, we'll kind of get an idea of where everything needs to be. We'll mock it all up, and then we'll start making the plans to make it permanent, you know? The major concerns for me were if this C-channel was gonna be heavy duty enough. I honestly think I went overboard with it. It's pretty thick shit. Now that I think about it, now that I'm looking at the square tubing for the rails, and I'm looking at the C-channel, I think I did overkill, which is fine, which is great. Shit, let's look at it. Let's get some more pieces up here. Yeah. God dang, man. I need to work out more. I miss being able to lift heavy ass weight, because this is heavy. All this metal is heavy as shit, and I hate it. Love the rear bumps. This is gonna be cool. This is gonna be cool. This is hardcore. So obviously, nothing is measured right now. This is just loosely kind of putting it up here. But this is gonna be the base of the flatbed. We'll probably end it about here so it's in line with that tow hitch. I still have some more design work to do. I really couldn't get hardcore into the design work until I figured out how this was gonna lay, and I like where this is at. I was gonna do 8 of these, or my original order of metal was for 8 of these C-channels, but I was like, holy shit, 8, that's one every foot. We don't need that. We don't even need 5. I would say 4 would, well, you never know. You know me, if I'm gonna do anything, I'm gonna do it twice. One thing I didn't count on, there's a bed mount here and there's a bed mount here, and those are on the frame in line. These 2 bed mounts are not in line on the frame. So I'm gonna have to build a bracket that kind of just welds to the edge, a little C-shaped bracket. It'll lead up to this body line and taper out and then cut straight back. That's just how most flatbeds look. So that's what we'll do. So I might lop some of this C-channel and weld it right up against here, and that'll be perfect. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. And right now, I don't have a perfect way to cap the ends, right? So I've got 4 foot by 8 foot tread plate sheets cut 3/16 as well, so they're heavier than a motherfucker. And it's gonna be piece here, piece there. That's how we're gonna do that. So we'll have 2 sheets right next to each other, sitting right next to each other, and that should fit perfectly across this. There should be no gap on the end because of the way I've done the math and measurements. So I've got 2 runs of 3/16. This is 10-foot runs of 3/16 flat bar stock. And that, I believe, is going to be perfect for capping the ends, right? Then we can run lights through it. We can run all sorts of accessories through it, and that should be good. And then obviously, I'm gonna have to figure out a way to do the filler neck, but that's gonna be part of the cut-in. So I'm not super worried about this right now. This was exactly where I wanted to be today. This is a great start. Okay, so I think I have a plan of attack. Obviously, what I do is I think about something over and over and over again, and I worry about problems that I think I'm gonna come across, and then I don't come across those problems. I come across a different set of problems, and then I gotta start over from scratch. But I think I have a plan of attack, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull off my 5 supports here, and we'll get with it.
One of the best investments that I've made over the years is getting a face mask. I've been using my current parcel safety mask for a few years now, and it's really done its job. It's got a built-in respirator which grabs all the metal particles while protecting my eyes and face, but it's fulfilled its duty and it's time for a replacement. This isn't sponsored or anything like that, it's just something that has become so important to my projects that I think it's something that everyone should invest in, but I cannot say enough good things about this mask, and I even got one from my buddy Captain. I make sure to take an ample amount of time getting my measurements as symmetrical as possible. It was incredibly time consuming, but in the end, it was absolutely worth it. Once I decided what length I was going to run for the rails, I removed the rails and cut off the extra. I also took a deburring file, went inside after each cut, and made sure that the edges weren't sharp. I don't want to be cutting my fingers or anything like that while I'm building this, nor do I want anybody else to ever do that if they're fiddling with this. Now my idea is basically to build the bed around the truck. Once everything was where I wanted it to be, I began designing the rear mounting points for the flatbed. My idea is to weld these nuts on the inside of the bed rails so I can bolt the truck directly to the bed frame. I'm going to cut a hole on either side, weld the nut in place, and sleeve the hole. The holes on either side need to line up, and both sides have to be spaced appropriately to match the bed's mounting points. Yes, I know I'm yapping it up right now, but I wanted to explain this process now so I don't have to every other time that I use this technique. I'm using some spare square tubing as a fence on my plasma table to ensure my cuts are going to be in line with each other. I am also cutting the holes a little bit larger than the bolts that I'm using, which will get us about 1/4 of an inch worth of adjustability before we weld everything in place.
So the diameter of the bolt is 1/2 inch. I don't see why we can't do 3/4 of an inch all the way around.
First cut of the build, and I fuckered it. This is gonna be boring to y'all, but here we go. When CNC cutting, you can cut things into an object, and you can cut things out of an object, and their inlays are different. Inlay here just means if the cutter cuts the outside or the inside of a line. I chose the wrong one, making the hole substantially bigger than it needed to be. It's a simple fix, but it cost some time, but hey, at least it happened right away, and I won't be making the same mistake again, right? I absolutely do. It happens like 6 more times. I'm dumb.
All right, so I have an idea. These are the bottom of the bed rails that meet the top of the frame rails, right? So the bolt's gonna go through here and there's gonna be a nut on the inside of here. This is just upside down. But I think for consistency, being able to take the bed on and off if you need to, I need to weld the nuts to the actual bed rails so that way you don't have to like fuck around and try to get a bolt out, right? So I need to create a window on the top of this so I can get a bolt in there and weld it in place on both sides, right? So I have some DOM tubing laying around from a previous couple of projects, right? Roll cage tubing. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut a hole with the same diameter as the outer diameter of this so I can sleeve it, weld this in place around the lip, and then weld a nut on the inside of the channel so that way you can literally just bolt the bed to the frame. You don't have to worry about trying to get your hand in there and try to get a wrench in there. So that way the actual bed will have the bolt threaded to it. Does that make sense? I'm gonna sleeve it with the DOM tubing. Not that it's gonna need it since it's gonna have C-channel running across it. I mean, this thing's gonna be built really over the top. It's just how I wanna be. So I need to cut a hole on the opposite side equal to this hole, except bigger in diameter. I think this tube is 1 3/4, so we'll cut it like 0.18 or something like that. And then we'll cut this into same length that can fit in here. So you just sit back and watch, all right?
So we've got these really nice sleeves cut. I'll be able to weld those in place. They'll be exactly what I need. I'm really happy with the way everything turned out there. So we have the rear mounts kind of figured out. But now what I need to figure out are the front mounts. When I designed everything, I just assumed that all the bed mounts would be in line with the frame, and they are not. So there's two back there that are in line with the frame, but there's two here, one in here and one here, that are not in line with the frame at all. They're off to the side, which means that I need to build a mount that extends over here. The bed is gonna be 8 foot wide by 8 foot long, but I'm gonna taper it as I get close to the cab because the cab is really only about 77.5 inches wide, right? So we want the body lines of the bed to match up with the cab. We'll extend it out and then we'll cut it back, which means that I can cut some C-channel, which would be perfect for making mounts up here. So I'm gonna cut a piece of C-channel. Instead of it being 8 foot, I'm gonna cut the piece of channel to where it's about 77 inches wide, and that remaining piece of C-channel, I will make 4 separate mounts that extend over the bed rails. So I'm gonna use the excess C-channel that I cut today to make mounts for the bed mounts. So we really need to make sure that the frame rails here are exactly lined up how we want them to be. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the 2 bolts in here, here and here, and then here and there. So I'm gonna get the bolts hand tight, adjust the frame rails till they're perfect, get them exactly how I want them, cinch them down nice and tight. Then I can make my mounts for the front half of the flatbed, and everything will stay nice and aligned. Then I can start laying my C-channel across, and we can start welding things together. So that's the plan. Let's get to it. So we have 4 pieces of this C-channel cut down to about 3 1/8, and they're just gonna sit across here, right, on the bed mounts. We're just gonna mount up to the frame rail like that. I'm gonna cut a hole with the CNC machine for each one, and then we're gonna weld them in place, and that will give the bed a great place for it to mount to the frame. I feel like this is gonna be nice and strong. The C-channel is very, very thick. At its thinnest point, it's 3/16 of an inch. Obviously, it goes to about a little bit bigger than 1/4 of an inch in the creases. So this should be more than strong enough. We'll just get these circles drawn.
Oops, chose the wrong hole again. Giggity. That's fuck up number 2. It's time to weld the mounts to the rails. I'm gonna lock them down with hardware and then tack them in place. Side note, since we're welding onto the truck now, I have disconnected both batteries. Some people say this is not necessary, but it's best to be safe than sorry with someone else's stuff, so I disconnected both the batteries anyway. I actually went out and bought this tool specifically for this build. Since I'm gonna be sleeving these mounts in the rear, I want the sleeves and the nuts to sit as flush as possible, and this was the only tool that could get inside the channel and get that seam file down. And honestly, it worked perfectly. People have been telling me to get one of these things for years, and I finally listened to them, and it was absolutely worth the cash for sure. Now, because I used the wrong inlay for the first cut, my sleeve hole was going to be slightly misaligned. So to give myself better access to weld the nut in place, I cut this little window in for the first sleeve, and I also left some cuts in the base of each sleeve so water doesn't get trapped in these sleeves.
All right, so at this point, we're great. We really don't need to do any other further measurements. We know that everything's solid, everything's sitting where it should be. I mean, everything lines up the way it should. And an 1/8 of an inch between here and there isn't gonna make a difference, but you know me. I just wanna make sure it's as good as it possibly can be. So that way when we lock it down, I can say, hey, that's square as hell, you know? See, that's not bad. That's not bad. We're about dead nuts at 43 1/4 here, both ways. Let's double, triple, quadruple check. Man, that's great. I'm so happy with that, to be honest with you. We'll check our cab to frame distance, 2.5, 2.5. I'm happy with that. Let's cinch it. Let's cinch it down. Here's the short one. Should be about the same width as our cab here. That's gonna sit about here too. That works. I think that's gonna be good. And this one's gonna be really important because this is gonna set our distances. Where'd I put that 5th C channel? I know I got it. I know I've used it. That's weird. How do you lose a whole C channel? Oh yeah, it's on the table because they used it as a jig. All right, now we need to figure out how we're gonna space them out. I don't know if you guys can hear me with all the fans because it's hot as hell, but we also need to keep the mounts readily available, and we don't wanna cover them. We need them available and they just need to take off the bed, you know? And we know the rails are 8 foot, so we know that's how big our 2 sheets are gonna be. Matter of fact, we should go ahead and do the math. It's 8 foot on the nose, buddy. 8 foot on the nose. Not me checking to see if the professional metal cutters got them all 8 foot on the nose.
I wanted the posts in the middle to be spaced out to where they weren't sitting directly above the rear wheels, but I also wanted them to be spaced out evenly to distribute the weight evenly. So I spent a lot of time doing a lot of math and a lot of measurements to make sure that everything was spaced out appropriately and there wouldn't be clearance issues with the rear wheel if the suspension needed to articulate. One of the techniques I used was one I stole from my dad. If you guys watched the video where my dad and I built my backyard fence, you'll know that we managed to get it perfectly level and straight, and how we did it, which was using the string method. This whole process really took a lot of time, but it was really worth the results. Once everything was perfect and where I wanted it to be, I hopped on my welder and tacked everything in place.
Well, everything's ready to get welded. Dead nuts on.
Now before I commit to the welds, I grabbed my comically large level and confirmed the rails were level. Everything looks good, so let's lock it in. Alright, everything looks great, so it was time to get the sheets of tread plate on the rails. And I knew these things were gonna be incredibly heavy, but like, damn dude. Let's do the math real quick. Each sheet is 3/16 of an inch thick and 4 foot by 8 feet in size. Google says that it's 8.71 pounds per square foot of tread plate, 32 square feet at $8.71 a pound is 278 pounds per sheet. So I asked my friends down the street at Vision Crafters, they make custom cabinets and stuff, check them out, if he would help me move it, and he stupidly agreed. It was really fucking heavy, dude. Now it's time to start designing the rear. I referenced a few designs that I really liked, and I wanted to add my own spin to it. Once I had a design I thought was good, I loaded up my plate steel, and I got to cutting. And guess what? I again used the wrong offset. This was big goober moves, alright? You'd honestly think that I'd learned by now. Well, gotta flip the plate and try again.
Let me be honest with you guys, because I try to be all the time. This design, you know, I usually am really good at designing something and being like, I like the way this looks, and it pans out exactly how I want it. I fucking hate it. I absolutely hate it. So I'm gonna take the weekend to redesign it because I don't like it. There's a couple of things I don't like. I don't like the flatness of this. I really don't like the flatness of this. I kind of wish it stuck out more of like a bumper than not a bumper. So I'm gonna have to redesign something. I'm gonna take the weekend, I'm gonna think about it, I'm gonna draw it all back out, and crack back on Monday. But outside of that, I'm very happy with the way this thing is going. I've got a little bit of room to play with on the long end, so I can kind of push all this back because this is right up against the cab basically. But I mean, everything is how I wanted it to be down here. We're gonna cap these end rails with a steel 4-inch piece of channel. I think I would do this again. I genuinely think I would do this again. It's not been hard, it's been fun. Like, it's a lot of fun challenging myself and learning new things. So it's been a good time. I just want to make sure I do a good job. I think I'm going to pivot this out, right? I think I'm going to kick that out into about here, right? So it's even with this line right here, and I think that'll be good. But I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to take the weekend and really think about it. I want to make sure I get it right. I just hate this. I just hate that.
I used a piece from the cut I decided not to use to test the taillight fitment before cutting out the new design. And here's a song that just doesn't get old. I used the wrong offset again. Seriously, I don't know what's wrong with me. I might actually be acoustic. But thankfully I still had enough room to do the correct cut and test the fitment, and boom, it works. So we're gonna run the new design. Now with the new design, I'm trimming the rear corners on either side towards the rear. I see most professional made beds have this cut, and I think it's for better angles, for trailers maybe, I'm not really sure, but I like the way it looks versus the flat back, so I'm gonna do it. I also use the string method here, and use painter's tape, which gave me a great contrast to see while cutting. I'm unfortunately having to cut this by hand with a cutting wheel. I know what you're saying, oh, why are you doing that when you have your expensive $30,000 plasma table? And that's because I only have a CNC torch head for it. And let me be real, doing this cut fucking sucked. It really did. Remember, this is 3/16 thick, and these are like 30-inch long cuts, and I had to do this 3 more times. Big fucking suck. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. Once the sides were tacked, it was time for me to do the middle. Now we have a lot to consider other than just a flat piece of metal. We have a license plate that goes here, so we need to be able to mount that to it, as well as illuminating it too. So we're gonna need tag lights. And he also needs access to the spare tire winch if he ever gets a flat. So we have to take all of this into consideration when building this back piece. Alright, I just realized that I have kind of fucked up, right? So I'm looking at a bunch of photos of flatbeds and I noticed that they all have the same 5 marker lights, 1 on the end on either side and then 3 in the middle. I did as much digging as I could find and couldn't find any specific rule or regulation that says it has to have this, other than like 1 or 2 posts, forums from other people or companies that say vehicles over 80 inches need those marker lights. The OEM bed doesn't have them on there. I mean, it kinda does. It has these side marker lights, right? But I think just to be safe than sorry, I don't want my buddy getting pulled over because of me, you know? So what I'm gonna do is now what I have to do is I have to cut marker lights here
and here, which means that I need to remove these. So I'm gonna zip through these tack welds real quick, pull them off, use the CNC machine to cut a hole big enough for marker lights. Thankfully I have enough laying around. Whatever, it puts us behind a day. It adds a day. Because I also need to add them up here as well. So I gotta do that now. All right, so I got the holes cut on either end. The math worked out really, really good. And I also got the holes here cut along the top. These are all like on point, man. They're fucking perfect. I did a lot of math, I got them right. I also made this, which is your tag light bracket. So it's got the tag light. It's gonna shine down like this, or rather like this on the inside of where the license plate goes. And I've just welded some nuts on the inside, giggity. It's cut out for that. So I got 2 of them. That one goes there. That's gonna go in here like so. I'll weld that in. Then do the same thing for the backing for the license plate as well. And that'll have threaded nuts for it. So that worked out really well.
Now another thing I did was build him some brackets that attach to the rear of the bed. This is where the OEM bumper would bolt up, and making removable brackets will make taking this bed off a lot easier in the future if he ever needs to. With the rear tacked up, it was time to cap the inside of the rails. For this, I'm using 4-inch tall, 3/16 thick bar steel. My plan is to cut several strap points into the bar steel that will run along the side of the flatbed. I've designed them in a 3-point shape so my friend can strap down anything in any direction. Omnidirectional strappage. Hell yeah. I'm also cutting these diamond-shaped cuts that will be welded to the back of each strap point. It doubles the thickness of the strapping point, and the diamond shape gives the bar steel extra rigidity and strength. With the diamond backers welded in place, it's time to cap the sides. Also chopping the front corners to match the shape of the cab. Again, I'm using the string and angle grinder. I know you didn't ask, but it still sucks. Another part of the build that required a lot of attention was the filler neck. I wanted it to be clean and recessed, but it also had to be above the tank so it can still fill properly. And this piece is also getting strap points and marker lights. I am really happy with the way the filler cap and neck came out. And you know, I had to sneak a little Easter egg in there. Dan made, baby. I've got the diamond plate and the sides tacked in place, and now I think it might be a good time to seam the two plates together. The challenge here is making sure both plates are level with each other. I bought some of these panel squares not too long ago, and they're going to be perfect for this. You put these things in between the gaps and tighten them down, and then boom, level plates. I laid down a few beads every few inches and made my way across the bed, inch by inch, until everything was level and solid. My next challenge is the headache rack. For this, I'm using 5x2 square tubing, and this is some heavy duty shit, dude. I started by cutting a short piece at the base, and then working my way up, somewhat designing as I went along.
officially challenged. I'm fucking stupid.
Happy with the frame of it, I leveled off the top of the rack and capped the holes. I also added these 1/4 inch thick D-shaped hooks and welded them to the rack. You will not have any issues finding somewhere to tie things down on this thing, I swear. And on top of the rack, I built this adapter plate. This way he can add whatever light bar or pod lights or whatever he wants in the future. Or hey, he can even strap more shit down. Now, a last minute addition I threw on here were these angled plates. These were the pieces that I cut from the bed, and I really wanted to use them somehow. I noticed a lot of builds featured some angled panels like this, and I assume it's for structural and aerodynamics. Here's the thing though, I needed to bend them along the shape of the rack, but I don't have a torch to heat them up with. So I did something kind of unconventional. I tack welded them in place and then beat them with a rubber mallet until the bend was good. And you know what, I give this method 8 out of 10. It was fun and loud.
Alright, the build is done. Everything that needs to be welded on here is welded on here. I've got one thing that I'm considering adding, but I'll see about that towards the end. Overall though, I'm extremely happy with the way everything has come out. I feel like it's exactly how I wanted it. It's exactly how I would have built it if it was for me. You know, excluding a few things here and there. But overall, I couldn't be more impressed with the work that I've done and the quality of my work. I mean, this is by far the biggest thing I've ever built. It is the most effort I've probably ever put into a single item, a single product, and we still have a lot more work to go, right? What's next? So right now, everything is tacked together. There's not very many welds that are solid. Now, I mean, the bed has a couple of beads laid across it just to keep this part nice and level. You know, I wanted to make sure that this stayed nice and level throughout the whole build process, but we still have a lot of welding to do. So that's what I'm about to do. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay down a lot more tacks all over this thing because we have a lot of wire to lay down, which means we have a lot of heat gonna go into this. We wanna mitigate warping as much as possible because we like where everything's at right now. I'm very happy where everything's at and I don't want it to move. While I do that, my good buddy Captain, he's on the way here. He is going to do the wiring for this truck. He knows way more about wiring than I do. He has a long history of doing lights and subwoofers and stuff like that. So that's his specialty. But you know what they say, there's nothing to it but to do it. Let's get started.
Fun fact, this was 4 hours of just welding in a time lapse. Not welding and grinding or welding in water breaks, just welding. And after I finished welding, I had my friend Captain wire up everything and we have our finished product. Now my friend is going to paint it himself as my shop isn't set up to paint and I'm really not good at it. But overall, he was incredibly happy. It fit everything that he needed it to fit. And honestly, man, so was I. I'm very happy with the work that I did. I'm proud to have built something like this, especially with such a project so big. Overall, I couldn't be happier with it. And that's that. We have finished the build. I gotta be honest, I had no idea this build was gonna take as long as it did. I'm pretty bad about underestimating things and being delusional, but I was really delusional with this one. I think altogether this took about 3.5 weeks to build from start to finish, and it was a challenge. It was very challenging. I worked my ass off on this. I put the most effort I ever have into anything, trying to make sure I made this good for my buddy. I'm happy that he likes it. I'm very tired. I have probably close to 100 hours into the bed. Who knows how many hours editing. I had over 50 hours of recorded footage, which is insane. So by far one of the biggest undertakings I've taken on the channel, and I'm happy with it. I'm very proud of the work, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And yeah, fuck, I'm having a hard time like thinking about what my next steps are because it took so much time to do. I'm ready to, I'm behind on orders. I really need to get, those are coming to you very soon. I'm working on those. Working on another project with Chase. I'm playing catch up, but thank you for your patience on stuff. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching. I know this was a long video. It has a lot of effort into it, so if you liked the video, please leave a like or a comment. And thank you very much. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm gonna go get some sleep.